On this episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, we are pulling back the curtain to look inside of what really motivates buyers and sellers in the real estate process. It's often not logic, but a lot of times it's psychology. This is going to be a good one, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hang on. Here we go. Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where you receive the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information you're going to find anywhere on the planet. You're going to get it right here from your friends at Elite Realty Group. I'm Mike Elkins, broker owner here at Elite Realty Group in Morristown, Tennessee, and I'm glad that you've took time out of your schedule to tune in with us today. We've got a good show for you today for your viewing and your listening pleasure, where we're kind of going to get into the psychological side, if you would have it, of real estate. Having been now in this real estate industry for over 18 years, I've seen just a lot of different things happening with the buying and selling process. And a lot of times, again, the logic that we think, well, it's just logically to do this or this to happen, or it doesn't always go what you would say the way of logic. There is a lot of psychology and the psychological side of buying and selling homes. It's something that it's worth looking into, because there's tips and tricks. There's things that you as a buyer or seller, maybe wherever you fit into the real estate market, investing, just knowing that these feelings that you have, the psychological side of real estate, that it is a real thing. And so we're going to look into those today. We're going to look at some things on the buying side when buying a home, the psychology that really is behind that. If you would have it, we're going to kind of get in the mind of a home buyer, kind of what they're feeling and those kind of things, because it does become very real. I said on a recent podcast that a lot of times buying and selling homes, getting your mind made up, getting everything ready is really the slow process. But once you kind of decide that you're going to do it, whether buying or selling, it can speed up very, very quickly. And so a lot of those things, just kind of getting in the arena of buying and selling homes, it makes the psychological part be a really big thing. On the buying side, there is psychology. On the selling side, it's the same thing. There's, you're trying to sell your home, but getting it ready, the psychological side of getting it ready is sometimes something that's hard to overcome. Now, the disclaimer here is today is I have zero, what you would say, schooling on how to talk to you about psychology and your mind and the human mind and all of those kind of things. I'm just going to be diving in today with you about the psychology of buyers and sellers. This will be some good information for you. But again, when you find yourself in those situations, we want you to be prepared. We've said it many, many times here on this podcast. That's why we do it, is we want buyers and sellers to be informed. It helps you better prepare what to expect. It actually makes the process for you as a home buyer or a home seller, and us as realtors that are assisting you with this purchase or sale of a home, it makes the process go a whole lot more smoothly the more information that you have. So we've got no secrets here at Elite Realty Group. We just want to give you the information. So let's dive right in. Okay, we're going to start first with the psychology, the buyer psychology, if you would have it, and the things that you may be thinking and maybe feeling and all of that on when it comes to a home buyer. This can be true for not only the first-time home buyer, but just anyone purchasing a home. And you've probably heard the acronym before. This is where we'll start today. You've probably heard the acronym before of FOMO, which is fear of missing out, okay? It's a real thing when you are buying a home, of having that psychological thing in your mind of having the fear of missing out. A lot of times buyers, they really rush into sometimes the purchase of a home literally just because of the fear of missing out. Now, we find this happen oftentimes when a buyer has been looking for a property, they've been searching the real estate market for a while, they've seen several properties, and they just have not found the one yet that kind of checks the boxes. Okay, they've not found that home that's the one that they want to pull the trigger on and ultimately buy. And you see a new home come on the market. Okay, there's a new one that hits this morning, and man, according to the pictures and the marketing and the description of this home that's at the market, the fear of missing out hits this buyer very, very quickly. Okay, and they're like, we got to go now. While I understand, as a realtor, real estate agent, a broker, you want to try to get there first, especially if it looks like this is going to be one that checks your boxes. But what ends up happening is oftentimes, and more times than people really even would think about it, just because that home checks the boxes or some of the boxes, that fear of missing out causes buyers to do things that they probably should not do when buying a house, such as, because it just hit the market and we've got the fear of missing out, oftentimes they'll overpay for a home. That's just a real thing that happens, and it's because of the psychological fear of missing out. We'll see them overpay for a home because they're worried that there's nothing else going to happen, there's nothing else going to come. We also will see, because what fear of missing out does to buyers psychologically is not only maybe will they overpay, but they'll overlook some things. Maybe when they have that home inspection, there's some problems, there's some issues, there's some things that may need to be taken care of, but that fear of missing out, oh man, if we don't get this one, there's not going to be another one come on the market. We're not going to get a home. We're not going to be able to move. They'll begin overlooking things on that home inspection. And some things are okay to overlook. I'm not the person that says you got to fix everything on a home inspection, simply because there's going to be a lot of things, brand new construction or not, that's going to be found on a home inspection. What I am telling you is it speeds up, and the fear of missing out causes you sometimes to overlook those things. It'll often, the fear of missing out, this is kind of one of those things that I think a lot of people don't think of, and I touched on this in a recent episode, is because things do go so quickly. Fear of missing out causes buyers to change their needs and their wants list, and they just kind of take that list and they throw it to the side, meaning they really needed a home in a particular school district. But the fear of missing out on getting a home causes them to overlook or disregard a very important aspect of what they started out trying to do in their home search process. And that's just overlooking things. So a psychological thing that you as a home buyer will need to be aware of is the fear of missing out. Now, if we go in the real estate market today, I think this is worth putting in here. We have more inventory right now than we've had in several years for buyers to pick from. The chances are that the home that you are looking at today don't feel like that you have to overlook things. I am not telling you that the fear of missing out is not a real thing and you could really miss out, because you can. But don't think that you have to overlook items that are very important to you, such as overpaying for a property, such as overlooking items in a home inspection, such as overlooking you need a certain amount of bedrooms in your next home, because there's probably going to be a good chance that there's already on the market another home that's similar to the one you're looking at now, that the fear of missing out may be causing you to do those things. Or take your time. This is the largest purchase you're probably going to make in your entire life. Take your time, because it may not be on the market now, but there's a good chance that it will come onto the market in the future. You need to know that time is of the essence. And of course, if you find the house that you want, it checks all the boxes, you want to pull the trigger. But you don't have to allow fear of missing out take over your psychological state and do things that you probably shouldn't do when you're purchasing a home. That's one of the psychology sides of a buyer. Another one is what I'm going to call just emotional anchors, okay? And it's literally just the fact of you are buying a home. It's super exciting. Like it's a really, really, really good thing that you are purchasing a home. It's so exciting. You're either coming from a renter and you're going to go to a homeowner, or you're selling the current home that you have because your needs have changed, your family situation, job situation, something's changed. You've got approved. You're going to get the money. You know where your payment's going to fit in. You've done all the work that you need to do up front, but those emotions can literally just totally take over in your buying process, just because that you can do it. Okay. I say this all the time, and I said this too in a recent podcast that we did. Just because somebody tells you you can do something, and I'm going to use a payment as an example today, just because maybe your lender tells you you can purchase a $2,500 per month house payment, does not mean that you have to go purchase a $2,500 per month house payment. You don't want to let that emotion take over and just say because you can, you do it. It is exciting. It's fun. But at the end of the day, you still have to use the right anchors to make sure emotionally you are making the best financial decision for yourself. So emotional anchors, again, those are just the excitement of purchasing a home. It's a super big thing. It's a super big thing for you to not get overzealous, overexcited, and allow just that emotional anchor of the first thing that I see, I'm going to purchase it just because I can. Needs and wants are something you need to make sure your realtor knows about. Your needs need to rule everything. Your wants, if you can fit those in, that's just going to be icing on your cake. So that's two of the four emotional buyer psychology things when you look at purchasing a home. Here's the next one, okay? And it's literally, I'm going to call the power of just visualization, okay? This is a psychological part of not everything that you see in a picture is as it appears, okay? It's not always as it appears. But at the same point in time, you, at the end of the day, you have to be able to see yourself living in this home, okay? You have to see this is where I'm going to spend on average the next 5 to 7 years of my life. And when I'm talking about the power of visualization, I'm not just talking about you sitting in the living room watching TV. I'm talking about visualizing this is what it's going to look like for the next 5 to 7 years for me to get to work. This is what it's going to look like for the next 5 to 7 years. And I'm using 5 to 7 years because that's what the term is, the length is that people usually keep a home. It's usually 5 to 7 years. You're going to see yourself taking your kids to school, if that applies to you. Getting to your job, getting to where you may worship or frequent places, getting to shopping centers. Those are things that you really need to sit back and visualize, because psychologically speaking, again, a lot of times you don't think about those things. You don't think about, because again, you go back to number 2, it's an emotional, just outstanding time for you. You don't really visualize what do mornings look like in this area of getting to work. What does the traffic look like? And are there school zones that I go through? This morning coming to work, I got held up by a train for about 15 minutes. You just visualize those things, because again, your first 2 or 3 drives, you're tickled to death to be driving to work from your brand new home. You don't care about those things. But 5 to 7 years into it, visualize yourself, okay? Is this really what I want to do and where I want to be, and so on and so forth. So the emotional part of just visualizing yourself doing these things, getting to the grocery store, getting to places you like to frequently eat, visualizing that happening for the next 5 to 7 years, because that's going to happen. Sports practices and all that go along with what we have in our daily life. That's a real thing. Last one for the buyer side, and we'll jump over to the seller side. The psychological part of just the fatigue of sometimes of what comes with purchasing a home. I said earlier, we often have a fear of missing out. Well, in the same arena of that one is just decision fatigue, meaning you've kind of looked at a lot of things. You've looked at a lot of properties. You've viewed too many properties, and you're literally just feeling overwhelmed by that. If you're in the market today for a home, and again, I said earlier, you probably have more options now than you've had in several years. You need to make sure that you're keeping your own self on track with this by those needs and wants that I talked to you about earlier. But don't become overwhelmed, because there is a lot to look at right now. And these other things begin kicking in when you start feeling overwhelmed. Like, I don't know which is best. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's this location. I don't know if it's that location. And the fatigue begins to set in. And then what happens psychologically is stress moves in. Stress moves into your mind. It moves into this process. And honestly, it can become what you look at, because psychologically you've got this decision fatigue, and you've just got looking fatigue and all those kind of things. It starts to become a very stressful time where it should be a super exciting time for you. So, keep yourself from getting overwhelmed. You may want to slow down. That's okay sometimes when it's appropriate to you. All of those things are totally okay for you to do, but narrow that process. Okay. If you see a home and it doesn't check the boxes, forget about it. Okay. Forget about it, because it's those ones that we just kind of leave hanging in our mind that, this really ain't it. But yeah, I could make it work. I could do this and I could do that. And, I can drive 45 minutes to work, whatever those things are. That's when that fatigue, because you just constantly are thinking about those things, and it causes that fatigue to set in for you as a home buyer. So again, what we're doing today on today's podcast, for those watching and listening, we're pulling back the curtain of what motivates buyers and sellers. And we're taking the logic out of it a little bit. We're talking about the psychological side of things buyers and sellers may be feeling when they are purchasing and or selling a home. So we've talked about the buyers, okay? Now let's jump over to the sellers, because I think psychology on the selling side often hits really more than I do on the buyer side. And the first thing that I want to tell you about, and it's so real, it's real to me, honestly, as a realtor sitting here, but it is a real thing when someone wants to sell their house, is the emotional attachment that you have with that home. Okay? You've raised children there, you've made memories there, you've had family over there, your friends have had some great moments there. You understand my point. It's been your home. Okay? It's been your home for, on average, the last 5 to 7 years. There is a lot of emotional attachment that is with that home. Okay? It's real. If you've never sold a home, you probably don't understand, but if you've sold a home, you understand. Oftentimes, that emotional attachment to that home causes sellers to overvalue their properties just because of the memories that you have made at that home. I tell everybody selling their homes, I tell buyers when they're looking at homes and they're looking at prices, the person that's living in that property right now, in this case, we're talking to you as a seller, that house is worth more to you than it is anybody in the world. You know why? Because it's yours. It's your home. All those memories that I just told you about, they're a real thing. But when you're selling your home, you have to kind of remove that emotional attachment that you have, that you do think logically, that you don't overvalue your properties. I will submit to you listening and watching this podcast today, it's one of the biggest things happening in real estate right now, that sellers are overpricing their homes. And I get it. You want to get as much as you want. But don't let emotion kick in. Use logic when you're pricing your home. That's number one. The second thing, that this one's probably bigger than that one, but it goes right along with it, okay? Number one was emotional attachment. Number two, this is real for every single seller. And I'll be honest with you, even as a realtor, this one's real, okay? And it's literally loss aversion. You say, what's loss aversion? Loss aversion is we're fearful that we're leaving money on the table. Like, as a home seller, you want to get the highest that you can get. Like, that's the name of the game, okay? But you have the fear of leaving money on the table more than you're actually wanting to sell your home. And so it is so real right now in the market that we're in, that it's causing so many homes to be overpriced. If you look all across the country right now, the biggest movement in the real estate market is price reductions. And it's because emotional attachments, loss aversion, fear of leaving that money on the table is hitting so many people. We're not in the market that we had during the pandemic. We're not in a COVID real estate market, okay? We are way past that. And you can't do the things now in selling a home that you could do then. In that market, as many of you know, homes were going for thousands, and I'm just going to leave it at that, over asking price. While in some cases that's still happening today, they're rare, but you see home values, you see homes going for, 4% to 6% under the asking price right now is the average in Tennessee here in our area. But it's causing people, because their fear of leaving that money on the table, overprice their houses. Listen to me, if you're doing anything in selling your home today, don't let that fear of leaving money on the table override and be more important than missing the sale. If you need to sell your house, pricing it right will gain for you the most amount of money. Here's a side tip to help you use logic. The realtor that you're interviewing, the realtor that is applying for the job to sell your home, if you're in East Tennessee, we would love to do that here at Elite Realty Group. Apply for the job of selling your home. You want that realtor to do their homework and show you market statistics through a market analysis that will take the realtor's feelings out of it. It will take your feelings out of it as the seller, and it will show you real hardcore evidence of what the market says your property is worth. When you see that, that helps you overcome that fear of leaving money on the table, because you look at it from a market factual standpoint of view. You understanding at that point, this is where we need to price our house, and I'm not leaving money on the table by doing it. However, if I go too high, I'm not going to end up selling my home, and I'm leaving the entire check on the table because my home is priced too high, and I do not get a buyer for the home. That in itself allows you to be reassured by your comps, your area. It takes all of that in consideration, that you are doing the right thing for your home. Those are the two biggest emotional, psychological attachments that you see when a seller is trying to get their home. So now, concluding this episode today, oftentimes buyers and sellers, they don't make decisions on facts. You don't do that because of all of the things. Your decisions are driven by emotion, they're driven by fear and psychology. It's a real thing in buying homes. But realtors who understand this, somebody giving you this information, they know they've got the edge for you, because they understand where you're coming from as a buyer and a seller. And that gives you an edge. And if you're trying to sell, it gives you an edge because the realtor understands the psychology side of what you're feeling, what is going through your mind. It allows them to get you settled and get you in the right place for the price of your home. And as a buyer, it allows them to help keep you on track, because this thing can speed up. Now, look, if you're thinking of buying or selling in the Lakeway area, You want an agent who understands these things, the processes, but also what's happening in your mind behind it, then give us a call at Elite Realty Group. We would love to be able to serve you guys. It's a pleasure. We've been able to serve thousands upon thousands in the Lakeway area, and thus serving thousands has been a blessing to us, but it's also allowed us to see these sides, that what a psychological ride that we're about to take as a buyer and a seller. But at the end of the day, we get the job done. You get accomplished what you want to accomplish. If that's buying, you're getting the keys to your new home. If that's selling, you're getting to put the check in your pocket and the money in the bank. And that's what it is for all of us selling a house. That does it for us today on this episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where we've peeled back the curtain and looked at a little bit of psychological things that happen in real estate. I thank you for tuning in today to watch this episode. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, follow the channel, whatever it is on the platform you're watching or listening on. We give small, short clips every week for your viewing and listening pleasure, but every Wednesday, these new podcast episodes are released for you. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful, absolutely magnificent rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And I will see you on one of the upcoming episodes of the Elite Realty Group Podcast. You guys be safe and be blessed.